Hello and welcome to G Fun Facts Online, where we dig into the science behind the story. Today, we're asking a huge question. How can you possibly know how many people lived in North America 1,000 years ago? There were no census takers, no written records for most of the continent. It sounds impossible, but archaeologists have found a way, and it's completely changing what we know about the history of the continent before Columbus. The secret lies in something you've probably heard of: radiocarbon dating. But scientists aren't just dating one or two things anymore. They're taking thousands upon thousands of radiocarbon dates from archaeological sites all across North America and plugging them into powerful computers. This approach is called dates as data. The core method they use is called summed probability distributions, or SPDs for short. Imagine every radiocarbon date isn't a single point in time, but a range of possibilities, like a bell curve. An SPD analysis essentially stacks thousands of these probability curves on top of each other. When the final combined curve goes up, it suggests the population was growing because more people were living, eating, and leaving behind things to be dated. When the curve goes down, it suggests the population was shrinking. It's a proxy for population size, a demographic ghost signal from the past. So what have they found? When scientists looked at the entire continent, they found something startling. The indigenous population of North America seems to have hit a continental peak around the year 1150 CE. Then, it began a slow decline, stabilizing around 1450 CE, all before the major impacts of European contact. This finding alone is revolutionary. It shows that major population shifts were happening long before 1492. But here's where it gets even more fascinating. That continental trend is just an average. When you zoom in, the picture shatters into 100 different stories. The data shows huge regional variations. For example, while some populations in the interior of the continent were declining between about 1080 and 1300 CE, people in other areas like the Great Lakes, New England, the Central Plains, and California were doing just fine. Their populations were stable or even growing, right up until after European arrival. This immediately raises the question, why were some populations declining before contact? Researchers are investigating a complex mix of factors. Climate change is a big one. Major droughts could have crippled agricultural societies. Another factor is disease. As populations grew and settled into larger, denser villages and cities, they may have created the perfect conditions for the spread of their own, homegrown diseases. And of course, there was conflict and migration, as groups moved, clashed, and reorganized across the landscape. Now, you might be thinking, this sounds great, but how can we trust it? Isn't the data messy? And you'd be right to be skeptical. Archaeologists are very aware of potential problems. There is sampling bias. We've simply done more digging in some areas than in others. Some materials preserve better than others. To tackle these challenges, they're developing incredibly sophisticated statistical methods. They use new software tools, like a package for the R programming language called "archaeologists," to run complex simulations and test their hypotheses. They also cross-check their findings with other independent lines of evidence, like tree ring data, which can also give clues about past human activity and climate. So what does all this mean? It completely overturns the old colonialist myth of a static, unchanging continent waiting to be discovered. Pre-Columbian North America was a dynamic, complex place, full of societies that were growing, shrinking, moving, and adapting for millennia. This research reveals that indigenous peoples were active agents in their own history, experiencing booms and busts long before outsiders arrived. It also leads to a powerful thought experiment. What if Europeans had arrived a few centuries earlier, around 1150 CE? They might have encountered a continent at its absolute population peak, with potentially larger and more centralized societies in many regions. The history of North America could have followed a radically different path, and the work is far from over. The future of this field is about making the data even better and integrating it with other new streams of information, like paleoclimatic records and ancient DNA. By combining massive datasets with cutting-edge computational power, we are piecing together an unprecedentedly detailed picture of the human story on this continent. It's a reminder that history is never truly finished. We're just getting better at listening to the echoes it left behind. Thanks for tuning in to G Fun Facts Online. Join us next time for another deep dive into the world of science.